Hello, my lovely friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is super exciting, and honestly, it's one of my favorites. So get ready because we are diving into 5 simple tricks to speak English like a native fast. And yes, I mean it when I say fast. No boring grammar rules or textbook style tips here. I'm going to give you real, honest, and practical methods that actually helped me sound like a native without living in an English-speaking country. Now, before I jump in, can I just say I get you? I know how frustrating it can be. You understand English when others speak. You even think in English sometimes. But when it's your turn to talk, boom, blank mind, awkward pause. Or worse, you say something and then wonder if you sounded like Google Translate. I've been there. I lived in that space for years. And I tried so many things: online courses, apps, even reading the dictionary. I know, crazy, right? Ha 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 ha. But nothing really worked until I figured out a few simple but powerful tricks. These tricks changed the way I spoke. People started saying, "Wow, your English sounds so natural." And I want you to hear those words too. So let's not waste time. Grab a drink, get cozy, and stay with me till the end. I promise, this could be the video that changes your English game forever. All right, let's go! Trick number 1. Shadowing, the secret sauce of fluent speakers. Okay, so trick number 1 is my favorite. It's called shadowing. And no, it's not creepy. It just means copying the way native speakers talk, in real time. Let me explain. Think about how babies learn a language. They listen, copy, repeat. They don't read grammar books or memorize vocabulary lists. They learn by mimicking. That's exactly what shadowing is. Here's how I do it. I find a short video clip in English, like a movie scene, a podcast, or even a YouTuber I like. Then I listen to one sentence, pause, and immediately repeat it in the exact same way. Same tone, same speed, same feeling. And yes, I even try to copy the emotion. If they sound excited, I get excited. If they're dramatic, I get dramatic. I become their shadow. At first, it was tough. I sounded like a robot. But after a few days, something crazy happened. My pronunciation started getting better. My rhythm felt smoother. I started to sound more and more like a native speaker. The key is consistency. Just 10 minutes a day. You don't need to spend hours. And trust me, it feels like magic after a week. So if you want to sound fluent fast, start shadowing today. No excuses. Trick number 2. Stop translating in your head. Think in English. Okay, now trick number 2 is all about mindset. And it's something most of us do without even realizing it. We translate everything in our head before we speak. We think in our native language and then try to convert it to English. But guess what? That slows you down. It messes with your confidence. And honestly, it's the biggest reason you don't sound natural. So here's the trick. Start thinking in English. Now I know what you're thinking. How do I even do that? Don't worry, I'll tell you how I started. It's super simple. Start small. Begin with daily things. When you wake up, look around and name things in English. This is my bed. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm going to make tea. You can even talk to yourself. No, you're not crazy, I promise. Say things like, "What should I wear today?" Or, "Okay, let's check my emails." You're training your brain to live in English. The more you do this, the faster your brain stops translating and starts thinking directly in English. And when that happens, speaking becomes so much easier. It's like your brain finally stops fighting with you and starts helping you. I noticed huge improvement within 2 weeks of doing this. Try it, it's a game changer. Trick number 3, use real-life phrases, not textbook English. Okay, now let's talk about what you actually say. Have you ever learned a phrase from a book, said it in real life, and people just looked at you like, huh? Yeah, me too. That's because textbook English and real English are two very different things. Let me give you an example. Textbook says, "How do you do?" Real English says, "Hey, what's up?" Or, "How's it going?" Big difference, right? So the trick is to learn real phrases that native speakers actually use every day. How do you do that? Easy. Watch real content, TV shows, vlogs, interviews, even TikToks. Listen to what people really say. Make a list of useful expressions. Repeat them. Use them in your conversations. Some of my favorite phrases are, "No way," "You gotta be kidding me," "I'm not sure, let me check." "Totally," "I'm down for that." These phrases make you sound natural, not like a robot. And the more you use them, the more confident you feel. So ditch the textbook lines and start speaking like a real person. Trick number 4, practice speaking out loud. Every single day. Okay, now I know you've heard this before. Practice makes perfect. But I'm not just saying practice speaking like in a boring way. I mean, actually talk out loud every day. Why? Because your mouth needs to get used to English. It's like training a muscle. The more you speak, the stronger that muscle becomes. Let me tell you what I did. Every day, I talked for 5 minutes about my day. In English. Alone. In my room. No audience. Just me and my words. I'd say things like, "Today I woke up at 8. I made coffee. I was feeling tired, but I had work to do." It doesn't need to be perfect. Just speak, out loud, every day. And if you want to take it up a level, record yourself. Yes, I know it feels weird. I hated hearing my voice at first, but then I started noticing my mistakes and fixing them. Over time, my confidence grew. And now, I can speak English freely without fear. So make speaking part of your daily routine, just like brushing your teeth. No excuses, just talk. Trick number 5. Surround yourself with English, like you live in it. Okay, here's the final trick, and it's powerful. You need to create an English world around you. What do I mean? Well, think about this. If everything around you is in your native language, your brain stays there. But if you surround yourself with English, your brain starts living in English. Here's what I did. I changed my phone language to English. I followed English-speaking creators on Instagram and YouTube. I watched movies with English subtitles. I listened to English songs and read the lyrics. I even put post-it notes on my wall with English words. Every little thing added up. And slowly, English stopped feeling like a foreign language. It started feeling like my language. You don't need to live in the US or UK to be fluent. You just need to bring English into your daily life. Make English your environment, and fluency will follow. Hello again, friends. I'm so happy you're still here because I've got even more to share about 5 simple tricks to speak English like a native, fast. I know we already talked about the basics, but trust me when I say that every single minute you invest in these practices deepens your mastery and even boosts your confidence. Let's take this journey further, dive deeper into the details, and allow me to share even more about how I experienced real change in my English fluency. I want to start by sharing a little background. For years, I felt like my English was stuck on the surface. I could read and understand in a textbook, but when the conversation started, it was like my brain would suddenly go on vacation. It wasn't just about vocabulary or grammar. It was about feeling natural when speaking. And that's something many of us yearn for, especially when our goal is to speak English like a native. So today, I want to share not only the tricks, but also the mindset and the heart behind every step I took to get there. I remember the first time I really challenged myself to change my approach. I sat in my room one evening, feeling frustrated with the slow progress, and I decided that I needed to mix things up. I realized I had been studying English as if I was reading a manual rather than learning a language that I wanted to live. And that's when I discovered that the power of speaking naturally is not confined to any textbook. Instead, it thrives on authenticity, consistent practice, and immersing yourself in the language. So let's jump back into these amazing techniques and explore each one more thoroughly. I mentioned the idea of shadowing earlier, and trust me, this technique deserves an entire conversation of its own. Shadowing is simply the art of mimicking someone's speech, capturing every nuance, rhythm, and expression. I started with short clips from my favorite TV shows and YouTube videos. At first, it felt awkward because I wasn't sure if I was copying correctly. I'd pause a sentence and repeat it, trying to match the speaker's tone as precisely as I could. It wasn't just about the words, it was about the feeling behind the words. For example, when an actor delivered a heartfelt line, I didn't just repeat the words, I tried to channel that emotion, that vulnerability. And guess what? Over time, those sounds seeped into my everyday speech. I began noticing that my intonation started to mimic natural English rhythms. I'd catch myself using the same melodic patterns without even realizing it. One of the best parts of shadowing is that it's like a mini vocal workout every day. It trains your ear and your mouth simultaneously. I even started shadowing radio segments and podcasts. I found that when you're listening to conversations that are unscripted, like a live radio broadcast, you get a taste of real, spontaneous English. And that's exactly what you need if you want to sound natural. I recommend picking something that excites you. It could be a TED Talk on something you care about, a scene from a movie, or even your favorite song, if you can mimic the lyrics. Every little bit of practice adds up. Now, moving on to the mindset shift. Stop translating in your head. Think in English. If I were to reveal my little secret, it would be this. Learning to think directly in English was a game changer. Previously, I would construct sentences in my native language and then painstakingly translate them into English, word by word. This not only slowed me down, but also made my speech sound stilted and unnatural. I had this constant internal debate. Should I choose this word or that word? Would that phrase really work? It was mentally exhausting, and it created hesitation every single time I spoke. To truly break free from this cycle, I had to train my brain to switch gears entirely. I began with the simplest things. Every morning, right after I woke up, I narrated my day in English. I would look around my room and say, "This is my window. The sunlight is really bright today. I feel excited because I have so much ahead." Even if it felt silly at first, that simple routine gradually transformed into a habit. I started thinking in English even when I wasn't speaking out loud. Suddenly, I wasn't converting my thoughts. I was thinking naturally in English. And it wasn't just about speaking. This shift helped me understand humor, idioms, and even sarcasm much better because I was immersed in the way native speakers structure their ideas. There were days I'd catch myself thinking in my native language unconsciously, like I was on autopilot. And instead of feeling defeated, I celebrated those moments because they were a sign of progress. Every time I consciously redirected my thoughts into English, I knew I was training my brain to operate differently. In a few weeks, I could tell the difference. My responses became more instinctive, and my conversations felt smoother. as if I finally unlocked a hidden gear in my mind. Let's talk about using real-life phrases, not textbook English. This is another area where most of us get trapped. Imagine you're in a casual conversation, and suddenly you remember that you've memorized a perfectly grammatical sentence from a language app. But when you blurt it out, it sounds overly formal, like something you'd read in a textbook rather than a spontaneous conversation among friends. I used to fall into that trap all the time. I realized that native speakers don't sound like that at all. They use contractions, slang, colloquialisms, and friendly expressions that aren't always proper by textbook standards, but they work perfectly in daily life. One of my favorite ways to learn real phrases is by watching popular TV series and social media content. For example, when I watched my favorite show, I'd jot down phrases that the characters used in everyday scenarios. Not the scripted speeches, but the casual banter that happens over coffee or during a funny exchange. I noted down phrases like, "no way," "you gotta be kidding," or even simple expressions like, "I'm down for that." Then, I'd practice using them until they felt natural in my mouth. Over time, I felt these phrases weren't just part of my vocabulary, they became part of who I was when I spoke English. I started incorporating them into my conversations with friends, and the feedback was amazing. People said, "Wow, you sound so natural," and that was the best compliment ever. What's more, I began to understand that language is much more fluid and dynamic than we think. It's not just a set of rules and words, but an art form that evolves with culture and context. So instead of worrying about making mistakes or sounding imperfect, I embraced the messiness of language. I learned to laugh at my own mistakes, knowing that every error was a stepping stone toward fluency. There's a beautiful freedom that comes from accepting that no one is perfect. Native speakers make mistakes too. And that's the vibe I want to bring into my everyday conversations. And then there's the tip about practicing speaking out loud every single day. I can't stress this enough because it really is the cornerstone of becoming fluent. When I first started, the idea of speaking out loud in a private room, even if it was just to myself, felt a bit awkward and vulnerable. But the more I did it, the more natural it became. I'd set aside a specific time each day, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, where I'd talk about my day, my plans, or even just describe my surroundings in as much detail as possible. Over time, I recorded these speaking sessions and listened back to them, and that's when I noticed little things. I'd catch pronunciation errors or awkward phrasings, and I could correct them. It was like having my own personal language coach. I remember one particular day when I felt extremely self-conscious about my accent. I practiced speaking about how the morning coffee smelled and tasted, and when I listened back, I realized that my speech was far more natural than I had given myself credit for. I began to record more frequently, and those recordings became a testament to my progress. Eventually, speaking out loud became as routine as brushing my teeth. And the best part? I started to look forward to those sessions as a way to unwind and reflect, almost like keeping a diary. This daily practice not only sharpened my speaking skills, but also boosted my confidence, something that is just as important as fluency. Let me share another secret. Sometimes it's okay to talk to yourself. Yes, you heard me right. Talking to yourself in English can be incredibly beneficial. I would often have conversations where I'd ask myself questions and answer them on the spot. For example, I'd ask, What do I plan to do today? And then go on detailing my schedule. These self-dialogues might seem strange if you're not used to them, but they're a fantastic way to keep your brain active in English. They serve as rehearsal for real-world conversations, and over time, you'll find that your ability to articulate thoughts spontaneously improves tremendously. Now, let's discuss the final trick. Surround yourself with English, like you live in it. This trick is all about immersion, creating an environment that constantly reinforces your learning. Since we don't all have the luxury of living in an English-speaking country, the trick is to bring English into every aspect of your daily life. I started by changing the language settings on my phone, computer, and social media accounts. Every notification, every text message, and every app interface was now in English. At first, it was a bit jarring to see everything in English, but soon it became second nature. I began to feel as if I were living in a mini English bubble. I also subscribed to English podcasts, read blogs by native speakers, and made a habit of watching English news channels and movies. Before bed, I'd watch a short video clip or listen to an audiobook. Even while commuting, I'd listen to English music or radio programs. This constant exposure works wonders because it conditions your mind to think and absorb the language organically. Over time, phrases and sentence structures would pop into your mind without even trying. One particularly effective strategy I adopted was labeling everyday items around my home. I put sticky notes on doors, appliances, and even inside drawers with their English names. When I walked past these items each day, I was subconsciously reinforcing my vocabulary. It sounds simple, but the cumulative effect was astounding. Soon, I could recall the names of objects instantly without the usual hesitation. This technique helped bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical usage. And here's another golden nugget. Engage with native speakers as much as possible, even if you're not in an English-speaking country. Social media platforms, language exchange meetups, and online communities are filled with people who are eager to chat and help you improve. I've even made a few online friends who turned into pen pals, or should I say chat pals, over time. Having someone with whom you can regularly converse in English provides invaluable practice and real-time feedback. It's not just about speaking, it's also about listening and adapting to different accents, speech patterns, and cultural nuances. Each conversation helped me pick up subtleties that no textbook could ever teach me. I must also tell you about the role of patience and consistency. When I first started these methods, there were days when progress felt almost invisible. There were moments of frustration when I felt that my efforts weren't paying off as quickly as I had hoped. But what kept me moving forward was the understanding that language mastery is a marathon, not a sprint. There's no magic pill, only daily, persistent effort. Every time I practiced, even if it was just for a few minutes, I was investing in my future self. And trust me, one day you'll look back and be amazed by how far you've come. Let's have a moment to talk about the role of failure and mistakes in this journey. It might sound counterintuitive, but making mistakes is absolutely vital to learning. Every time you stumble over a word or mispronounce a phrase, you're gaining valuable insight into how the language works. I've had countless moments when I felt embarrassed or self conscious after making a mistake in front of native speakers. But every one of those instances was a stepping stone towards fluency. I learned to laugh at myself and see every slip up as an opportunity rather than a setback. Remember, no one expects perfection. Native speakers make errors all the time, and that's okay. It's all part of the journey. Now, let's dive even deeper into a few more personal anecdotes that might help you see these techniques in action. One time, I decided to record a short video diary in English. I wasn't planning on posting it. I just wanted to evaluate my progress. I talked about everything that happened during the day, the fun moments, the mishaps, even the silly things that made me laugh. After watching that video a few days later, I was amazed by how fluidly I spoke. I noticed that certain phrases I had struggled with before were now coming out perfectly. That little experiment gave me the boost I needed to keep pushing forward, and it reminded me how important it is to celebrate small wins along the way. Another memorable experience was when I attended an online language exchange event. At first, I was extremely anxious because I was speaking with native speakers in real time. But as the conversation progressed, I found myself using the tricks I had learned, shadowing the rhythm of their speech, using those natural phrases, and even thinking directly in English. I remember laughing with one of the native speakers when I mistakenly mixed up my words. Instead of making fun of me, they encouraged me and shared their own experiences of learning new languages. That moment was so powerful because it reinforced one simple truth. Every effort counts, and every conversation, no matter how imperfect, is a step toward mastery. As you can see, these tricks are not isolated techniques. They're interrelated habits that, when practiced consistently, transform your English from a set of skills into a living, breathing part of who you are. They work together to build not just language proficiency, but also self-confidence, creativity, and resilience. When you immerse yourself in English, whether it's through shadowing, thinking in the language, or engaging in spontaneous conversations, you're also immersing yourself in a new way of experiencing the world. I also want to stress another important point. The journey to speaking English like a native is as much about your inner attitude as it is about technique. It's about believing in yourself, embracing your uniqueness, and understanding that every accent, every mispronunciation, every quirky expression makes you who you are. There's a certain beauty in that. Embracing your individuality while learning a new language creates an authentic voice, one that people recognize and appreciate. Remember, your accent is not a flaw. It's a testament to your journey and your willingness to step out of your comfort zone. For me, one of the most liberating moments was when I realized that communication is about connection, not perfection. I began to focus on connecting with people, sharing ideas, laughter, and heartfelt stories, rather than obsessing over every detail of grammar or pronunciation. That mental shift made all the difference. I stopped seeing language as something to be mastered rigidly and started seeing it as a tool to share who I am. And in that moment, my English truly began to shine. I want you to imagine yourself in a scenario where you're sitting in a cozy cafe, chatting effortlessly with a group of friends, sharing stories about your day. Picture how natural it feels when your words flow, And you don't have to pause and think every second about the right word. That is the goal, my friends. It's not about achieving flawless English. It's about engaging, enjoying, and embracing every conversation as a celebration of your growth. As you implement these tricks, you'll find that the changes are subtle yet profound. You might start noticing that certain expressions become second nature. A phrase like, "that's awesome," or "no kidding," might roll out of your mouth without a second thought. And before you know it, you're not just speaking English, you're living it. I also want to talk about the importance of setting realistic expectations. Some days you may feel like you're making tremendous progress, and other days might feel like you're stuck in a loop. That's completely normal. The key is to keep practicing, to keep the passion alive, and to remind yourself that every single day is an opportunity to improve. Some of my best progress came on days when I surprised myself by speaking more fluidly than I thought possible. And on the days when I struggled, I reminded myself that every stumble is simply part of the learning curve. Consistency, even in small increments, adds up to monumental changes over time. There's also a fantastic trick that complements everything I've discussed, a strategy I like to call active listening. Active listening means not just hearing the words, but truly absorbing them in context. When you're watching your favorite show or listening to a podcast, don't just passively enjoy it. Actively engage. Listen to how the speakers use language in different situations. Notice the rhythm, the tone, the choice of words in light-hearted banter versus serious discussions. Over time, this active engagement enhances your understanding of context and subtle nuances. And it also makes it easier for you to incorporate those nuances into your own speech. This sort of listening is like having a backstage pass to the art of conversation, and it enhances every single one of the tricks we've talked about. I know some of you might feel overwhelmed by the idea of changing your entire environment or overhauling your daily routine, but remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Start small. Perhaps switch your phone to English today, then subscribe to an English podcast tomorrow, and then try that daily speaking practice later this week. Celebrate each small victory, and before long, you'll see that the small steps really do lead to massive improvements. I truly believe that the magic of these tricks isn't just in their individual power, but in how they work together to immerse you completely in English. There are moments when I feel nostalgic about my early days of learning, moments when everything felt so challenging. I remember feeling so excited, yet anxious, every time I had to speak up in a group call. But with each mistake, each laugh, and each kind word of encouragement from my peers, I grew stronger. And eventually, the fear faded, replaced by an exhilarating sense of freedom. I'm here today because I chose to see language learning as an adventure rather than a chore, and I want you to experience that same thrill. As I wrap up this extended chat with you, I want to leave you with a few more personal reflections. Every learner's journey is unique, and while these 5 tricks are powerful, your path may also include experiments that suit you best. Mix and match these techniques until you find your perfect combination. Embrace the diversity of methods available, whether it's watching comedy shows, engaging with blogs, or even participating in voice chat groups online. Language learning isn't about rigid rules. It's about exploration, creativity, and expression. Think back to when you first started this journey. Remember the excitement, the curiosity, and the dreams of speaking as naturally as native speakers? Hold on to that feeling every day. Let it inspire you to keep trying new things, to keep speaking out loud, and to embrace every opportunity for growth. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. Progress isn't linear, but every single step moves you closer to your goal. In closing, I hope these expanded insights have given you new tools and a deeper understanding of how to truly embody the English language in your daily life. You now have the power to transform your approach, turning doubts into dialogues, fears into fluency, and uncertainty into utter confidence. I believe in you, and I know that with every bit of practice, every shadowed sentence, and every thought in English, you're becoming an even more amazing communicator. To recap one more time in a natural, heartfelt way, shadowing teaches you to imitate real-world speech, allowing you to internalize natural rhythms and expressions. Thinking directly in English liberates your mind from constant translations, letting your ideas flow freely and authentically. Embracing real life, everyday phrases lets you escape the rigidity of textbooks and make your conversations lively and genuine. Daily out loud practice is like a workout for your speaking skills, building the muscle of language confidence steadily over time. Surrounding yourself with English, from digital spaces to simple sticky notes, completely immerses you in the language, turning every moment into a learning opportunity. I want you all to take these tips and try incorporating them into your routine. There's no single, perfect way to learn a language, just a series of small, consistent actions that build up over time. Experiment, fail, and try again. Your voice is unique, and your journey to speaking like a native is one that celebrates your individuality. It's not merely about flawless grammar or impeccable pronunciation. It's about connecting with others, sharing your thoughts, and growing through every conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch and listen to me today. I know that the path to fluency can seem long and winding, but every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal. I want you to remember that every moment you engage with English is progress, and that progress is something to be celebrated. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the 5 simple tricks, and I hope you did, don't forget to leave a comment telling me which trick resonated most with you or how you plan to put these tips into action. I absolutely love reading your stories, hearing about your struggles, and celebrating your breakthroughs. Your journey is as important as mine, and every shared experience inspires not only me, but also this entire community. Before I say goodbye, I have one last thought. Learning a language is like learning to dance. At first, the steps might seem clumsy, and your rhythm may be off. But with practice and perseverance, you eventually find your groove, and the dance becomes a joyful expression of who you are. So, lace up your dancing shoes, step onto that English dance floor, and let every conversation be a celebration of the wonderful, unique way you communicate. In this community, we celebrate progress over perfection. Embrace the journey, cherish the small wins, and never forget that every time you speak English, you're making the world a bit smaller, connecting with people, sharing ideas, and building bridges across cultures. I'm beyond excited to see where your English journey takes you next. Keep practicing, keep dreaming, and keep speaking from your heart. And if you ever need a reminder that you can do this, just revisit these tips or even rewatch this video. The road may twist and turn, but every step forward is a victory that brings you closer to your goal of fluency. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here with me, for listening, and for daring to take these steps toward better communication. I'm always here to share, learn, and grow alongside you. Until next time, keep speaking, keep shining, and remember, you're already amazing, and your English is only going to get better and brighter each day. You know, as I continue to reflect on my journey, I realize there are always more little nuggets of wisdom to share. Even when you feel you've mastered the basics, language learning is this endless adventure where every day offers something new. So let's explore a few more bonus insights that I wish I'd known earlier. These extra tips and stories might just be the spark you need when you're feeling stuck or simply curious for more ways to enhance your fluency. One of the extra methods that really helped me was embracing self-reflection through journaling in English. I know I mentioned recording my spoken practice sessions earlier, but let me tell you about how writing in English has subtly yet powerfully improved my speaking too. Every evening, I'd sit down with a pen and notebook, or sometimes my phone, and write about the day's events, my thoughts, and even my worries. At first, it was purely functional. I just wanted to track progress. But over time, I started noticing that the way I wrote began to influence the way I spoke. Writing forces you to structure your thoughts, and that structure eventually leaks into your spoken words. When I'd write about a funny encounter or a moment of triumph, I'd later share that story with friends, with the exact same nuance I felt while writing. It was like unlocking an extra layer of comfort with the language. Plus, writing allowed me to experiment with words and expressions without any fear of judgment. No one is there to critique your grammar when it's just you and the page. And once you build that confidence in your writing, speaking fluently feels like a natural extension of it. Another bonus tip that's perhaps less obvious but equally effective is using technology to your advantage. Now, I'm not just talking about language apps, although those are great, but also tools like voice-to-text features on your phone or computer. Here's how you can use them. Record a short audio clip of yourself talking about your day, and then use a speech-to-text tool to transcribe it. Compare that transcription with what you intended to say. Chances are, you might catch little errors, mispronunciations, or moments where your pace slipped. It's like having an instant feedback loop with yourself that's objective and helps you correct in real time. I remember one evening after a language exchange call, I was so excited about the progress I'd made that I immediately recorded my thoughts using this method. Later, when I compared my spoken words with the transcription, I saw that my filler words, like, and you know, had almost vanished after a few weeks of conscious effort. Tools like these, alongside regular practice, give you a clear picture of your progress and show that every bit of effort really counts. Let's now shift gears a bit. I want to invite you into one of my favorite interactive moments that completely transformed the way I viewed language practice. There was a time when I hosted an informal English-speaking meetup online. Picture a virtual room where people from various corners of the world logged in, not as experts, but as learners sharing their unique challenges and triumphs. During these sessions, the atmosphere was so electric. We'd discuss anything from movies and music to current events, and the diversity of topics meant that I was constantly exposed to different contexts and vocabulary. What truly amazed me was the supportive nature of the group. When someone made an error, there was no judgment, just gentle corrections and encouragement. I vividly remember a particular session where I accidentally mixed up some common phrases. At first, I was mortified, but then a kind soul reassured me that even native speakers trip over words sometimes. That moment of vulnerability turned into one of my biggest learning experiences. It taught me that language is as much about community as it is about individual progress. For those of you who haven't tried something like this, I highly recommend it. There are countless online communities, forums, and even social media groups dedicated to English language practice. Engaging with real people in a supportive, authentic way can bridge gaps that solitary study sometimes can't reach. It also opens the door to making friends, learning cultural subtleties, and even understanding humor in ways that textbooks never address. Now, speaking of humor, let's talk about the role of laughter and fun in language learning. I can't stress enough how much joy you should allow yourself during this journey. When I started taking every misstep too seriously, I began to lose the fun that originally ignited my passion for English. One day, during a recording session at home, I deliberately tried to mimic a comedian's delivery from one of my favorite stand-up specials. I ended up laughing at myself, and that laughter was contagious. It reminded me that humor is an integral part of communication. It's okay to laugh at your mispronunciations or funny mistakes, because those moments are often the most memorable and endearing parts of your journey. In fact, I started incorporating humor as a regular part of my practice. I'd mimic funny dialogues from movies, or even create little skits that I would perform in front of the mirror. Not only did this exercise sharpen my pronunciation, but it also injected a sense of creativity and spontaneity into my English. And believe me, when you're relaxed and having fun, the language flows more naturally, almost like it's dancing alongside you. Another aspect I'd like to explore is the power of storytelling. Humans have been sharing stories for millennia, and our brains are wired to remember narratives far better than isolated facts. One day, I challenged myself to narrate a short story in English every day. It didn't have to be long or perfect. It could be a recounting of something interesting that happened, or even an imaginative tale. What I soon discovered was that these storytelling sessions enriched my vocabulary, helped me structure my sentences, and boosted my confidence enormously. I also started recording these stories and then listening back to them a few days later. The process was eye-opening. I found that the more I practiced storytelling, the more comfortable I became with spontaneous speech. It wasn't about constructing a perfectly polished narrative. It was about conveying emotions and experiences in a way that felt genuine. The simple act of telling a story in English not only improved my fluency, but also made the language a canvas for my creativity. Let me also share a reflective moment that ties all these strategies together. One evening, after a particularly long day of language practice, I sat down to write in my journal. As I reread my entries from several weeks ago and compared them to those written recently, I was filled with an overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment. I could see the transformation in the way I expressed my thoughts. My sentences were longer, my vocabulary richer, and my ideas flowed more freely. That realization, seeing tangible progress over time, was my greatest motivator. And there will always be days when things don't seem to click. On those days, it's important to remember that every journey has its ups and downs. The key is to keep moving forward, even if the steps are small. Celebrate the little wins, a well-timed word, a laughter-filled conversation, or even a moment when you thought entirely in English without hesitation. And here's one more idea before I wrap up this extension. Make your practice personal and relatable. What works for one person might not work for another, so tailor these tips to fit your unique style. For instance, if you love music, try singing along to your favorite English songs and pay attention to the intonation. If you're a visual learner, watching movies with subtitles might be your best bet. And if you thrive on interaction, then language exchange sessions can be incredibly rewarding. The beauty of language learning lies in its versatility. There's room for every learning style and personality. As we close this extended dive into embracing English as a living language, I want to encourage you to think about your own progress. Maybe even set a small goal for the week, whether it's recording a short video diary or engaging in an English chat for 10 minutes without preparation. Notice how these small challenges build into significant strides over time. Your journey is personal, and every bit of progress is a victory worth celebrating. Thank you once again for staying with me through this in-depth exploration of simple yet effective tricks to speak English like a native, fast and naturally. I'm truly honored to share my experiences, tips, and personal growth with you. If you're ever feeling stuck, remember that every expert was once a beginner, and every conversation, every practice session, is a stepping stone towards your goal. If you have any questions, thoughts, or even your own unique tips that have worked for you, please leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you. It inspires me to keep creating content that helps us all grow together. And if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe so that we can build this supportive community of learners who uplift each other every day. As you continue to practice, remember this. Speaking English isn't about having a perfect accent or using the right words at every moment. It's about expressing your true self and connecting with others, embracing every mistake as a lesson and every triumph as a reason to celebrate. You're not just learning a language, you're embracing a whole new way to see the world, tell your stories, and share your dreams. All right, let's keep this conversation flowing naturally. I'll continue sharing more personal insights, interactive reflections, and additional techniques that have truly enriched my English learning journey. This next part is all about pushing through plateaus, overcoming fears, and making your practice so engaging that you literally look forward to every chance you get to speak. So, let's dive even deeper together. You know, one thing I've noticed along the way is that there are periods when everything feels like it's finally clicking, and then suddenly you hit a plateau. It might feel like you're not making any progress, and that can be discouraging. I've been there. Days when I'd practice shadowing, thinking in English, and recording myself, only to feel like my speech was stuck in the same old rhythm. But here's what I've learned. Plateaus are just a natural part of any learning process. They're not setbacks at all, but instead, moments when your brain is busy consolidating all the new habits you've formed. During these moments, I discovered that mixing up your routine is crucial. If you've been focusing on one aspect, say shadowing a particular video or repeating the same phrases, try something completely different for a while. For example, I sometimes switched to interactive storytelling sessions. I'd invite a friend or even join an online group to chat casually. Sometimes, even switching the subject matter completely. A funny anecdote from my childhood one day, and a passionate discussion about my favorite book the next, gave my brain the variety it needed to start processing and adapting in new ways. Another aspect that really helped me during these plateau phases was setting mini challenges for myself. I'd ask, can I explain my favorite hobby in English without pausing? Can I describe a recipe or give directions without translating every word? These challenges, although small, created a sense of achievement and built a natural progression. They were not about perfection, they were about enjoying the process and noticing that every time I stepped out of my comfort zone, I was one step closer to truly fluent natural speech. There were also days when I realized that my motivation was struggling a bit. Those days when the practice felt like just another task on my to-do list. That's when I returned to one of my most powerful tools, reflection. I began to look back at old recordings and journal entries. Hearing the steady improvement, however incremental, was an amazing confidence booster. It reminded me that every moment spent speaking out loud was a stepping stone. Sometimes you just need that reminder to reignite your passion for the journey. Another powerful element that has enriched my experience is asking for feedback. When I joined language exchange communities or online meetups, I encouraged honest feedback from native speakers. It was sometimes nerve-wracking to hear the corrections or suggestions, but I learned to see them as gifts, opportunities to improve. I even started recording these interactions, with permission, of course, so I could listen back later and fine-tune my pronunciation or the natural flow of my sentences. Feedback not only highlighted my strengths, but also shone a light on areas that could use a little extra practice. And believe me, those little tweaks and adjustments over time made a huge difference. One morning, after receiving some thoughtful feedback from a kind native speaker during a virtual conversation, I sat down with a cup of coffee and rewatched the recording. I noticed a few patterns. Sometimes I'd cut off my sentences too abruptly, or I'd use filler words in moments of hesitation. Recognizing these patterns allowed me to focus on reducing them, one conversation at a time. Instead of being self-critical, I celebrated each small change. Every time I reduced a filler word or smoothly transitioned between ideas, I chalked it up as a win. Those wins, no matter how minor they seemed in the moment, accumulated into a significant improvement in my overall fluency. And speaking of feedback, sometimes the best form comes from within. This is where self-assessment plays a crucial role. After any practice session, take a moment to reflect on how you felt. Were there moments when your mind went completely blank? Did you notice any hesitation when switching topics? Write these down. Over time, you'll see trends. Maybe you're more confident during storytelling, yet you stumble when describing abstract ideas. Knowing your strengths and weaknesses in such detail can guide you on where to focus next. It turns the process into a personal, dynamic project where every spoken word is analyzed not for perfection, but for progress. Now, I want to talk a bit about incorporating creativity into your practice. For many of us, learning a language can sometimes feel like a chore, filled with routines that can become monotonous. One way I've managed to break this monotony is by intertwining creative expression with language practice. A while back, I began writing short, silly poems or even little rap verses in English. It wasn't about being a poet or a rapper. It was simply about exploring the fun side of language. The playful twist not only made the process enjoyable, but also allowed me to experiment with rhythm and intonation in a way that traditional practice might not. This creative exercise enriched my vocabulary with playful expressions and helped me find a unique voice in English. There were also times when I invited friends to join me in creative sessions. We'd have informal English improv nights where each of us would pick a random topic, and then we'd just start a conversation full of spontaneity and wit. These sessions were a delightful mix of laughter, learning, and a few hilarious mistakes. The energy was infectious, and it reaffirmed that the essence of communication is connection, not flawless execution. It taught me that sometimes the beauty of a conversation lies in its unpredictability. An integral part of this process is also the art of patience with yourself. I can't stress enough how important it is to be kind to your own learning journey. There were times I'd become frustrated when I couldn't remember a particular word or when my pronunciation felt off. In those moments, I learned to pause and remind myself that each step, however small, builds toward greater fluency. I developed little rituals, like taking a 5-minute break to listen to a favorite English song or watching a short, funny video, to reset my mood and regain perspective. Learning is a marathon, not a sprint, and nurturing a sense of compassion toward yourself makes all the difference. One more personal story I'd love to share involves an unexpected encounter that significantly boosted my confidence. I was in a local coffee shop one afternoon, practicing my English by ordering a coffee and engaging in a brief conversation with the barista. I felt nervous at first, but I remembered all the practice I'd been doing. As I chatted about the weather, my favorite type of roast, and even how I planned to spend the rest of my day, I noticed the barista smiled and kept the conversation flowing effortlessly. That simple exchange, seemingly mundane, was a breakthrough moment for me. It confirmed that real-life interactions, no matter how brief, can have a profound impact on your self-assurance. It's these small, everyday victories that remind you that the language is yours to command, one conversation at a time. As you continue your journey, I encourage you to keep a playful and adventurous spirit. Experiment with different formats. Record a video diary, write a blog post, or even narrate your favorite recipes in English. Each new activity is an opportunity to discover a different facet of your language skills. Over time, you'll find that these diverse experiences not only enhance your fluency, but also enrich your understanding of English as a living, evolving language. I also want to emphasize the power of community once more. Surrounding yourself with people who share a common goal creates a sense of accountability and support that is truly invaluable. Whether it's joining a virtual group chat, engaging with followers on social media, or even forming a small study group with like-minded learners, These interactions provide the kind of encouragement and honest conversation that textbooks simply cannot offer. Remember, your community is a resource, a living, breathing network of experiences and ideas that will keep you motivated and inspired, even on the toughest days. Throughout this journey, you're not just learning a language, you're evolving as a communicator. Every conversation, every practice session, every moment of self reflection is contributing to a broader, richer tapestry of skills that goes far beyond grammar rules or vocabulary lists. It's about developing the confidence to express yourself authentically, to tell your own stories, and to connect with others across cultures. And that, my dear friends, is a victory that extends well beyond the confines of language learning. Before I wrap up this extended portion, let's take a moment to revisit our core insights, reminding ourselves that progress is built on persistence, creativity, and a willingness to step out of our comfort zones. The 5 tricks we've discussed: shadowing, thinking directly in English, adopting real-life phrases, speaking out loud every day, and surrounding ourselves with English, each play a pivotal role. But remember, the journey is uniquely yours. You can tailor these strategies, mix in creative twists, and engage with your community in ways that resonate with you personally. I want to encourage you to make a habit of celebrating your journey. Keep a log or a diary of your progress, whether it's noting down a new phrase you mastered or a small conversation that went better than expected. Over time, these reflections become a treasure trove of motivation, reminding you of every hard-won milestone along the way. As we near the close of this extended dialogue, I want you to remember that every time you sit down to practice your English, whether through speaking, writing, or simply listening, you are investing in a future where your communication skills are a source of immense power. They are keys to opening doors, building relationships, and exploring the world with a confidence that comes from truly knowing that you can express yourself authentically in another language. Thank you for sticking with me as we continue this deep dive into embracing English as a part of who we are. I hope that these additional insights and experiences inspire you to keep experimenting, learning, and growing. Every conversation, every challenge, and every laugh along the way is a testament to your determination and progress. Remember, language isn't just about words on a page. It's about connection, creativity, and the courage to step into new environments. I'm so grateful to share this space with you, where we're not only mastering a language, but also celebrating our individual stories along the way. If you have more questions, or if there are specific areas you'd like me to explore further, please share them in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts and ideas. They help make this journey richer for all of us. Keep pushing forward, keep exploring new ways to engage with English, and most importantly, keep believing in your ability to learn and grow. Once again, thank you for being here and for allowing me to share a piece of my journey with you. I'm cheering you on every step of the way. Until we meet again in our next conversation, take care, be creative, and never stop speaking your truth in English. Happy practicing, and see you in the next video.